Our lead story tonight, a major breakthrough after months of tension on the Korean peninsula. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has opened the door for a dialogue with the United States. South Korea's National Security Advisor Chung Wee-young said today that North Korea is willing to discuss denuclearization if the regime's safety is guaranteed. He was part of the 4-hour-long face-to-face meeting with Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang that happened on Monday.
North Korea has a clear point of view for denuclearization on the Korean peninsula. They say there is no need to keep the nuclear program if there is no military threat against North Korea and the safety of the regime is assured.
So here are the major takeaways from that historic and critical meeting in Pyongyang. 1. Kim Jong-un promised that North Korea will not use nuclear and conventional weapons against South Korea. 2. Both sides have agreed to hold summit-level talks in late April. South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korea's Kim Jong-un are expected to meet at the Truce Village in Panmunjom on the heavily fortified border between the two countries. 3. South Korea says North Korea will impose a moratorium on nuclear and missile tests if it holds talks with the United States. And Seoul also says that Kim Jong-un is open to denuclearization if the military threat to North Korea is eliminated and the security of Kim's regime is guaranteed. North Korea is yet to corroborate these statements. The third player in this equation is Washington. President Moon will dispatch his envoys to America next, where they are expected to brief the Trump administration about their meeting with Kim. A top-level South Korean delegation returned to Seoul today after spending 2 days in Pyongyang. This meeting was part of a fast-moving wave of rapprochement between the North and the South. Photographs released from Pyongyang show a smiling Kim Jong-un meeting South Korean officials who later had dinner with the North Korean leader and his family. This meeting comes just ahead of military exercises between the United States and South Korea. That's another concession that North Korea interestingly wants. It wants readjustment in the military engagements between South Korea and the US. 3 days ago, North Korea threatened to quote-unquote counter the United States if it holds joint military exercises with the South. South Korean President Moon Jae-in, meanwhile, has sent a personal letter to Kim Jong-un through his envoys, inviting him for talks. Both sides in recent months have expressed their willingness for a dialogue to diffuse tensions on the Korean peninsula. And this was the first time that officials from South Korea met with Kim Jong-un since he came to power 7 years back in 2011. The Korean state television says Kim Jong-un wants to quote-unquote vigorously advance closer ties with South Korea. The South Korean president, as we know, has always been an advocate of talks.
우리는 한반도 비핵화를 위해 북한과 대화해야 합니다. 그러나 동시에 우리는 북핵과 미사일 대응 능력을 조속히 그리고 실효적으로 구축하는 데 총력을 기울여야 합니다.
The United States, meanwhile, is keeping a close eye on the developments on the Korean peninsula. In a tweet, President Donald Trump said that, and I'm quoting, the United States is ready to go harder in either direction. So far, Washington has been skeptical about the attempts to solve this crisis through dialogue. Reports from the American media say that North Korea, during this diplomatic tour, is also perfecting the guidance system of its missiles. Many American lawmakers believe that Kim is bluffing, and the diplomatic outreach is just another charade. The Trump administration wants the international community to step up pressure on Pyongyang. That's what they've been saying. The United States so far has used this policy, has used the sanctions route. Crippling sanctions from the United Nations Security Council have brought economic activity in North Korea to a standstill. President Trump has repeatedly called on China to do more to pressurize North Korea, but Beijing has found no mention in this period of diplomatic thaw. North Korean businesses, in fact, continue to operate in China. Beijing has also put on hold a request by the United States at the UN to ban and blacklist shipping firms that are helping North Korea circumvent sanctions. China has said today that it is ready to play a role to improve ties between the two Koreas.
中方维护领土主权的决心和意志坚定不移，无论日方说什么做什么，都改变不了钓鱼岛属于中国的事实。我们郑重地敦促日方正视历史和现实，以正确的历史观教育年轻一代，避免给中日关系制造新的干扰。
Whether this is a time-buying tactic or a sincere effort at striking peace will be clear only in the months ahead. What's also important to note is the fact that the world does not know for sure what kind of nuclear weapons North Korea has. It chooses the time, it chooses the venue of its tests, and it releases images as it sees fit. There is no way to independently assess or verify North Korea's capability, so this peace offer may well be a bluff. President Xi Jinping is on a high. In the course of the next few days, the National People's Congress will drop the two-term limit on the tenure of the president, theoretically making him president for life. Is that good or bad for India? The consensus is it could see the continuation of the seesaw in bilateral relations witnessed over the course of the last few years. Let's try and read the tea leaves here. Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale was in Beijing over the weekend. It was a quiet visit during which he was able to meet two key persons: Foreign Minister of China Wang Yi and State Councillor Yang Jiechi. Wang Yi was in Delhi last December for a trilateral with Russia and India. And ahead of that, he was quoted as saying, and I'm quoting here, "We hope that the Indian side will handle sensitive issues prudently and work with China to promote the sound development of China-India relations." So what are these sensitive issues? Wang Yi's reference to these issues reflects China's views on Tibet, for one, meaning the Dalai Lama, and Doklam. Basically, Wang did not want India to allow the Dalai Lama to mark the 60th anniversary of his flight to India on the 31st of March 1950. The exiled Tibetan community had planned celebrations, including what they're calling a Thank You India event in Delhi's Tyagaraja Stadium. That event has now been shifted to Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. India agreed to this, we are told. That's what diplomatic sources are telling WION, because China had accepted putting Pakistan on the grey list at the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, meeting in Paris last month. It was a reciprocal engagement. But India's support for the exiled Tibetans continues. There is no change in India's support for the Dalai Lama. The Tibetan community will be enabled to preserve their way of life and culture in India, and India rejects China's historic claim to Tibet. That also preserves India's stand on Arunachal Pradesh and trans-Himalayan areas. As for Doklam, the Defence Ministry and its sources have been warning of rising Chinese transgressions along the line of actual control. These Chinese patrols have been aggressive, so expect no respite there. There's an unmistakable pattern to the India-China relationship for some years now. Blow hot, blow cold. Good ties alternating with periods when things get pretty bad. The warmth and the chill may not be entirely due to the persona of Xi Jinping. As president, he has a broad, chiefly domestic agenda with a focus on ensuring the economy keeps ticking over, which ensures there is no unrest on the streets. It's not easy, particularly at a time when China's exports to the world are under pressure from protectionist sentiments, which brings us to Xi's external agenda. In terms of Xi's priorities, India may not necessarily rank very high. Trade volumes are not great and have been in China's favor for many years now. But that very deficit and what are seen as China's half-hearted attempts to address it have raised hackles here in New Delhi. Add to that China's bid to break India's influence in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and the Maldives. Its iron brother relationship with Pakistan, which includes overlooking its support of anti-India terror groups.
China and Pakistan are all-weather strategic partners, will continue to strengthen coordination and collaboration on counter-terrorism issue. Our political mutual trust is unbreakable. No attempt to sour the China-Pakistan relationship will succeed.
Make no mistake, this is not Xi Jinping's personal agenda driven by some dislike of India. Even at the height of the Doklam standoff last year, the Chinese leader thought it fit to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is how leaders in fact behave. They talk to everyone, they keep their options open, see opportunities where those lower in the hierarchy may not. Those lower in the hierarchy, in fact, are the party apparatchiks, bureaucrats, the intelligence and security establishment which sees only through their narrow prism. What they see is a country far behind them in economic and military terms, yet challenging their quest for strategic dominance in this region. It's the institutional hostility of the Chinese state to India's refusal to bow to its power. India boycotted China's signature One Belt, One Road summit last year. It has joined hands with Japan in what could be a fledgling Asian NATO. India is building a defense and security relationship with America. The quadrilateral is bringing together the India with the US, Australia and Japan to check China. Xi Jinping knows what's going on. He's the chairman of the Central Military Commission, also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So nothing the military does in China can be kept secret from him. He knew what was going on in Doklam, and although it may not have been deliberately initiated by his military, China's loss of face would matter to him. So he may have no objections in putting more pressure on India along the line of actual control or deepening engagements with India's neighbours. But there's also buzz in Delhi that a high-level visit from China is in the works. It could be a foreign minister, Mr. Wang Yi, perhaps even Premier Li Keqiang. In other words, Xi Jinping sees wisdom in keeping lines of communication open. But do not expect Xi to allow India into the nuclear suppliers group or stop blocking India's effort at the United Nations to sanction Jaish chief Masood Azhar. As for backing India for a Security Council seat, no way. On the flip side, China collaborated in the move to put Pakistan on the grey list in the Financial Action Task Force recently. As I said earlier, blow hot, blow cold. Now, if you thought the search for scapegoats ended along with the 30-year-long civil war in Sri Lanka in 2009, think again. The country's majority Sinhalese and largest minority Tamil Hindus are no longer fighting each other, but they may both now have a new scapegoat, Sri Lanka's second-largest Muslim minority. Sri Lanka has declared a state of emergency for 10 days to rein in the spread of communal violence. This comes a day after Buddhists and Muslims clashed in the central district of Kandy. Tension has been growing between the two communities over the past year, with some hardline Buddhist groups accusing Muslims of forcing people to convert to Islam and vandalizing Buddhist archaeological sites. Last week, at least 5 Muslims were severely injured in the country's Tamil-speaking eastern province, where Muslims are, ironically, in the majority. The province was formerly claimed by the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Ilam, or the LTTE, as a quote-unquote Tamil homeland. This week, the scene of attacks has shifted to the holy Buddhist city of Kandy. Special forces of the police and the armed forces are out in the town that houses the holiest Buddhist relic, the tooth of Lord Buddha, and its surrounding areas. After the death of a Sinhalese man allegedly at the hands of a Muslim mob, there is simmering tension in Kandy. Given a debt crisis and a much weakened coalition government in Colombo, Sri Lanka's president and prime minister, both of whom are the authors of the current so-called unity government, will have to act and act fast. That is, if they want to prevent their country's blood-soaked history from repeating itself. We'll keep an eye out on what happens in Sri Lanka. For the moment,